May 15th, 1863, dawn. Dear Diary, today the Foundation offered us a choice that no leader should ever face. Save our nations by lying about everything, or tell the truth and watch America burn. The past 4 days had been a whirlwind of arrests, interrogations, and preparations. We'd captured dozens of Foundation agents using the Beta Protocol intelligence. Seward was providing information, though we couldn't trust whether he was revealing truth or laying more traps. Constance Blackwood remained imprisoned but silent, refusing to say anything more. And throughout it all, we'd waited for May 15th, knowing the Foundation had something planned but unable to determine what. The message arrived at sunrise, delivered by a street urchin who claimed a fancy lady had paid him $1 to bring it to the White House. The envelope was expensive stationery, sealed with the Foundation's symbol. Inside was an invitation. Presidents Lincoln and Davis, you are cordially invited to a final negotiation at Ford's Theater, 10 a.m. today. Come alone, unarmed, prepared to discuss terms for ending our mutual conflict. Fail to appear, and you will understand the true meaning of consequences. The Foundation Council of Directors. Would you walk into this obvious trap? Tell us what you'd do. It's a trap, Stanton said immediately. They're planning to kill you both in a public venue. Create maximum chaos. Maybe, Davis said thoughtfully. But why invite us to negotiate? If they wanted us dead, they could have attacked already. They've had 4 days to position assassins. Mary studied the invitation. Ford's Theater. The same location where they started a fire as a distraction during the May 10th attacks. They're returning to a site they've already used, which suggests this isn't about assassination. Or they want us to think it's not about assassination, Rose countered. Classic misdirection. I looked at Davis. We'd been through so much together in the past 2 weeks, rescued each other, fought together, trusted each other with our lives. The Confederate president and I had become something neither of us could have imagined. Allies, possibly even friends. I'm going, I said. If there's any chance to end this without more bloodshed, I have to take it. As do I, Davis agreed. Though I insist on being armed despite their demands. Walking into a trap unarmed is courage. Walking in prepared is wisdom. Mary grabbed my hand. Abraham, after everything we've learned about the Foundation's methods, you know this is manipulation. They're not offering peace, they're offering something worse. She was probably right. But what choice did we have? Ignore the invitation and wonder forever what opportunity we'd missed. Or attend and face whatever the Foundation had planned. At 9:45 a.m., Davis and I arrived at Ford's Theater. The building had been partially repaired since the fire, but still showed signs of damage. The area was strangely deserted. No guards, no staff, no audience. Just an empty theater waiting for 2 presidents. We entered through the main doors, hands on our concealed weapons despite the invitation's demand to come unarmed. The interior was dark, lit only by a few lanterns. The stage was set with a simple scene. 2 chairs facing the audience, a small table between them. Theatrical, Davis muttered. They do love their symbolism. But as we approached the stage, lights suddenly illuminated the theater boxes, revealing that we weren't alone. Every box was filled with people. Not Foundation operatives or assassins, but faces I recognized from society, politics, military service. Senators, congressmen, Supreme Court justices, military generals from both Union and Confederate forces. Journalists with notebooks. Foreign diplomats. Hundreds of witnesses, all watching silently. What is this? I said, looking around in shock. A voice came from the presidential box, the same box where Mary and I had watched performances before the war. This, Mr. President, is your trial. Like if you think this is more terrifying than assassination. An elderly man appeared in the box, expensively dressed, with the bearing of European aristocracy. He wore the Foundation's medallion prominently. I am Lord Edmund Ashford, chairman of the Foundation's Council of Directors. You've been fighting our American operations, but I represent the organization's true leadership. And today, we resolve this conflict not through violence, but through choice. What choice? Davis demanded. Lord Ashford gestured to the assembled witnesses. These people represent the power structures of both your nations. Military leaders, political figures, influential citizens. They've been told there will be an important announcement today, but they don't yet know what. He pulled out 2 documents. Here are your options. Option 1. You jointly announced that the conspiracy theories about the Foundation were fabrications, that you invented them to justify your secret collaboration with the enemy. You confessed to manipulating public opinion, to creating false evidence, to betraying your respective nation's trust. That's insane, I said. No one would believe we'd confess to that. Oh, but they would, because we have documentation of every meeting, every collaboration, every moment when you worked with your enemy against your own nation's interests. Presented correctly, with the right narrative, you'll appear to be traitors who got caught and are now trying to minimize damage. And option 2? Davis asked. Option 2. You tell the truth. You expose the Foundation's operations, show your evidence, explain everything. You prove that your alliance was justified, that we really exist, that you were fighting for both nations' interests. That doesn't sound like a bad option, I said suspiciously. Lord Ashford smiled coldly. Doesn't it? Let me explain what happens when you expose us. First, your evidence is all 200 years old or from sources no one trusts. Constance Blackwood, William Seward, Rose Greenough, all compromised witnesses. Your proof will sound like conspiracy theory to most people. Second, the existence of our organization will terrify your citizens. They'll realize they've been manipulated for centuries, that nothing they believed about their own history was true, that forces they can't see control their lives. Trust in government, in democracy itself, will collapse. But then he revealed the most devastating consequence. Third, and most important, exposing the Foundation means exposing every compromised individual we've identified. Remember those lists you found? The senators, governors, generals, judges who've been working with us knowingly or unknowingly. He held up a thick folder. We'll release our own version of those lists. Every person who ever cooperated with us, for whatever reason. Every politician who took our money. Every general who followed our advice. Every judge who ruled in our favor. Thousands of names, positions, incidents. Your governments will be gutted. Not just Union, not just Confederate, but both. You'll have to remove so many officials that your administrations will collapse. The military chain of command will be shattered. The courts will be paralyzed. And in that chaos, both nations will be vulnerable to whoever wants to seize power. The horrible genius of it struck me. Option 1 meant confessing to crimes we didn't commit, destroying our reputations, but preserving governmental stability and public trust. Option 2 meant telling the truth, exposing the Foundation, but potentially destroying the very governments we'd been trying to protect. You're forcing us to choose between our honor and our nation's survival, Davis said quietly. Precisely. You can be remembered as traitors who saved their countries, or heroes who destroyed them. Choose. I looked at Davis. His face showed the same anguish I felt. We'd fought so hard, sacrificed so much, lost so many good people. And now it came down to this. A choice between truth and stability, between personal integrity and national survival. How long do we have to decide? I asked. These witnesses are expecting an announcement in 10 minutes. After that, we release our version of events regardless of what you choose. You'll be defined by our narrative instead of yours. But then Mary's voice came from the audience. I turned to see her standing in one of the lower boxes, with Rose, Stanton, Harrison, and Anna Carroll beside her. You've made one critical error, Lord Ashford, Mary said, her voice carrying through the silent theater. You assumed these witnesses came here without information, that they're blank slates ready to believe whatever narrative you present. Mrs. Lincoln, how delightful, Lord Ashford said. But I'm afraid you're interrupting. We've spent the past 4 days briefing every person in this theater, Mary continued. Carefully, individually, with evidence. They know about the Foundation. They know about the genealogical tracking, the financial manipulation, the centuries of conspiracy. They know about Willie's murder, about Anna Carroll's fake death, about William Seward's betrayal. Lord Ashford's confident expression wavered. That's impossible. We would have known if you were conducting such an operation. You would have, if we'd used standard communication channels, Rose added. But we used networks you don't know about. People you never identified. We've been preparing this counteroffensive since we raided your Capitol headquarters. Anna Carroll stood up. Every witness here has seen documentation. Not just old founding charters, but current financial records, recent communications, living testimony from Foundation defectors. They know the truth, Lord Ashford. Your narrative won't work. I saw it now. While I've been focused on interrogating captured agents and preparing for May 15th, Mary and her network had been conducting a massive intelligence operation, educating the very people the Foundation was planning to manipulate. So you see, I said, finding my voice again, your choice isn't a choice at all. These witnesses already know the truth. We can tell that truth publicly with evidence, and they'll believe us because you've already lost the battle for their trust. Lord Ashford's face hardened. You've made a grave mistake. We still have resources you can't imagine. We'll destroy you, destroy your alliance, destroy everything you've built. Perhaps, Davis said. But not today. Not here. Not with hundreds of witnesses watching. But then Lord Ashford revealed the Foundation's final card. You think you've won because you've informed a few hundred people? The Foundation operates in 12 countries. We have members in every major government. American operations are just one piece of a much larger organization. He pulled out a telegram. While you've been playing your little games, we've been repositioning. European operations are already implementing alternatives to the American plan. Within 5 years, whether through economic pressure or political manipulation, we'll achieve the same goals. And there's nothing you can do about it. You're American leaders. Your authority ends at your borders. You can expose us here, fight us here, even defeat us here. But we'll continue everywhere else, and eventually, we'll return to America stronger than before. It was true. We'd wounded the Foundation's American operations, possibly destroyed them entirely. But the organization was global, ancient, entrenched in systems of power we couldn't easily reach. Then we'll fight you there too, I said. We'll share our evidence with other nations, with other leaders who are being manipulated. We'll expose your operations everywhere. Will you? And who will believe you? The paranoid American presidents who see conspiracies everywhere? You'll be dismissed as madmen while we quietly rebuild. Lord Ashford began backing toward a side exit. Enjoy your hollow victory, gentlemen. You've won a battle but lost the war. The Foundation will endure, as it has for centuries. But Rose was already moving, along with several operatives positioned throughout the theater. Lord Ashford ran, but they were faster. He was captured before reaching the exit, dragged back to the stage struggling and shouting. You can't arrest me. I have diplomatic immunity. I represent foreign interests. You represent a criminal conspiracy, Stanton said, arriving on stage with soldiers. And diplomatic immunity doesn't cover conspiracy to commit murder, terrorism, and treason. As Lord Ashford was taken into custody, still protesting, I looked out at the assembled witnesses. Senators, generals, diplomats, journalists, all watching in stunned silence. This was the moment. Not the choice the Foundation had wanted to force on us, but the choice we were making for ourselves. To speak truth, regardless of consequences. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, my voice steady despite my exhaustion. What you've witnessed today is the culmination of an extraordinary conspiracy. Not the conspiracy Lord Ashford accused us of, but the one we've been fighting for the past 2 weeks. I explained everything. The genealogical manipulation, the financial control, the deliberate prolonging of the war, the assassination attempts, the systematic infiltration of both governments. Davis stood beside me, adding his testimony, describing his own experiences with the Foundation. And as we spoke, I saw belief in the audience's faces, because they'd already been briefed, already seen the evidence, already knew the truth. They weren't being asked to accept an incredible story on faith. They were hearing confirmation of what they'd already learned. When we finished, the theater erupted not with accusations, but with applause. These witnesses, representatives of both Union and Confederate society, were applauding the exposure of a conspiracy that had manipulated them all. There's more, Mary said, standing. President Lincoln and President Davis have been working together to stop the Foundation. Yes, that means a Union president and Confederate president allied against a common enemy. Some will call it treason. We call it patriotism. She pulled out documents. These are executive orders both presidents are signing today. Orders to share intelligence on Foundation operations, to cooperate in identifying compromised officials, to work together until this threat is eliminated. This doesn't mean the war is over, Davis added firmly. The Union and Confederacy still have fundamental disagreements. We still oppose each other's goals, but we've agreed that some threats transcend our conflict. The foundation is such a threat. It was a remarkable moment. Two presidents, publicly announcing cooperation while maintaining their opposition on everything else. It should have been impossible, contradictory. But somehow it made sense. But then one of the witnesses stood and asked the question that would define everything. A Union general I recognized as a respected officer stood in one of the boxes. Mr. President Lincoln, Mr. President Davis, this alliance against the foundation, this cooperation between enemies. What happens when the foundation is defeated? Do we simply return to killing each other? Does this change nothing about the war itself? The theater fell silent. Every person waited for our answer. I looked at Davis. We'd never discussed this. We'd focused on fighting the foundation, on immediate survival, on tactical cooperation. But what came after? Davis spoke first. General, I can't speak for what the Confederacy will do after this crisis. But I can say that fighting beside Union soldiers, seeing their courage and dedication, has reminded me that we're all Americans, even when we disagree about what America should be. I took a deep breath. The war continues because we have fundamental disagreements that haven't been resolved. Slavery is still evil. The Union must still be preserved. But perhaps we can find a way to resolve those disagreements without the Foundation's manipulation pushing us toward maximum destruction. Are you suggesting peace negotiations? Someone called out. I'm suggesting honest dialogue. No guarantees, no promises that can't be kept, but acknowledgement that we've been manipulated into fighting in ways that serve the Foundation's interests rather than our own. It wasn't a peace treaty. It wasn't even a ceasefire. But it was something new, an opening, a possibility that the war might end through negotiation rather than complete destruction of one side by the other. Mary smiled at me from her box. She'd known I would choose this path, had prepared for it. The intelligence briefings she'd conducted over the past 4 days hadn't just been about the Foundation. They'd been laying groundwork for a different kind of conversation about the war itself. There will be those who call us traitors, Davis said. In the Confederacy, some will say I've betrayed the cause by working with you. In the Union, some will say you've betrayed the cause by working with me. They might be right, I admitted. History will judge whether we made the correct choice. But I'd rather be judged for choosing principle over manipulation than for following the Foundation's design for our nation's destruction. Over the next hour, we answered questions, provided more details, and began the process of helping both governments understand what had been happening. The Foundation's American operations were broken, their leadership captured or fled, their agents arrested or defected. But Lord Ashford had been right about one thing. This was just the American chapter of a much larger story. The Foundation existed globally, and exposing them here wouldn't end their operations elsewhere. So what do we do about the International Foundation? A journalist asked. We share everything we've learned with other nations, Mary said. We publish the evidence, make it public, impossible to hide. We turn the Foundation's secrecy into a weakness by eliminating it entirely. And we remain vigilant, Rose added. The Foundation survived for centuries because people didn't believe such conspiracies could exist. Now that we know, now that we're watching, they'll find it much harder to operate. But as the gathering began to disperse, Constance Blackwood appeared in custody, and what she said challenged everything. She'd been brought from her cell to testify, heavily guarded but no longer silent. Standing on the stage, she looked at the assembled witnesses with something almost like respect. You think you've won, she said. You think exposing the Foundation means defeating it. But you've actually given us exactly what we needed. What are you talking about? I asked. The Foundation was founded on secrecy, yes. But it was founded on something else too. The belief that ordinary people can't be trusted with self-government, that they need guidance from those who know better. You've just proven that belief wrong. You've shown that when people know the truth, when they have real information, they make intelligent choices. You've proven that democracy can work, that citizens can handle complexity, that transparency is stronger than manipulation. She smiled, genuinely. Some of us in the Foundation, the faction Harrison belonged to, we believed that. We thought the organization had lost its way, become corrupted from its original purpose. You've given us the evidence to prove it. So you're saying we helped you? Davis asked skeptically. You've helped the part of the Foundation that wanted to change. The part that remembered we were supposed to guide civilization, not control it. Lord Ashford and his faction represented the corruption. You've removed them. Now those of us with different views can reshape what the foundation becomes. It was an uncomfortable realization. We hadn't destroyed the foundation. We'd enabled a civil war within it, between those who believed in manipulative control and those who believed in something closer to our own principles. Will you testify about this? I asked. About the internal conflict, about what the foundation could become instead of what it's been. Yes, on one condition, that you recognize the foundation isn't entirely evil, that some of us genuinely believed we were helping, guiding, protecting civilization from its worst impulses. We were wrong about the methods, but not wrong about caring what happens to humanity. It wasn't the clean ending I'd wanted. Not complete victory over pure evil, but something messier. The recognition that even conspiracies can have complex motives, that people can believe they're doing good while doing terrible things. May 15th, 1863, evening. Dear Diary, it's over. Not completely, not perfectly, but over enough. The Foundation's American operations are broken. Lord Ashford and his faction are in custody. Dozens of compromised officials have been removed from power. Both Union and Confederate governments are beginning the long process of recovery. But I think about everyone we lost. Willie, murdered to manipulate me. Hamilton, who died earning redemption. The 347 people killed in the May 10th attacks. Countless soldiers on both sides who died fighting a war prolonged by conspiracy. Were we successful? We exposed the conspiracy, captured its leaders, protected both nations from complete destruction. But we couldn't save everyone. We couldn't prevent all the pain. And the war continues. Davis and I have open dialogue, but neither of us can compromise on fundamental principles. Slavery is still evil. Southern independence is still unacceptable. The Union must still be preserved. But perhaps now, the war can be fought honestly. Without manipulation, without secret forces pushing us toward maximum destruction, without young men dying to serve the Foundation's agenda. Jefferson Davis and I stood together on Ford's theater stage today, two enemies who became allies against something worse than our disagreement. When we parted, he said something I'll never forget. Mr. Lincoln, I still believe you're wrong about the Union, about states' rights, about the fundamental nature of our republic. But I believe you're honestly wrong, fighting for principles you genuinely hold. There's honor in that, even when we oppose each other. I told him I felt the same. We're enemies, but we're honest enemies now. No longer puppets dancing to the Foundation's tune. Mary found me in my study tonight, writing these words. She sat beside me, took my hand, and said, "You know this isn't really over, don't you? The Foundation will adapt, rebuild, try again in different ways." "I know," I said. "But we've proven something important, that when people know the truth, when they work together, when they choose principle over manipulation, they're stronger than any conspiracy. Even when choosing principle means continuing a terrible war. Even then, because at least now it's our war, fought for our reasons, not theirs." The candle burns low on May 15th, 1863, the day the Foundation planned to shatter America. Instead, America proved it could bend without breaking, unite without surrendering identity, fight honestly even when fighting hard. Tomorrow, the work begins, rooting out remaining Foundation influence, rebuilding trust in government, continuing the war we must fight while seeking the peace we should pursue. But tonight, I allow myself to hope. Not that the war will end quickly or cleanly. Not that the Foundation is truly defeated. But that we've proven something more important. Democracy works. Truth matters. And sometimes, even the bitterest enemies can find common ground when facing forces that would destroy them both. The final entry in this extraordinary month. Tomorrow begins a different story. How two nations, manipulated for centuries, learn to write their own history. Whatever that history becomes, at least it will be honestly ours. November 19th, 1863. Dear Diary, today I delivered an address at Gettysburg, dedicating a cemetery for soldiers who died in July's battle. I spoke of a new birth of freedom and a government of the people, by the people, for the people. I thought of the Foundation while writing those words. They wanted government of the elite, by the elite, for the elite. We proved them wrong. The war continues. Davis and I maintain occasional communication, but we're still enemies in principle. The Confederacy fights on, though with less financial support now that we've disrupted foundation banking networks. Mary's intelligence network has gone international, working with European operatives to expose foundation operations worldwide. Rose coordinates with British agents. Anna publishes articles revealing conspiracy details. Harrison leads the Foundation Reformation faction, trying to transform the organization into something better. And I lead, no longer blind to the forces that would manipulate us, no longer naive about the cost of democracy. The Foundation will return, in some form. Constance was right about that. But now we're watching. Now we know. Now we're ready. That, perhaps, is the real victory. Not destroying evil completely, but learning to recognize and resist it. The candle burns bright tonight, illuminating not just this page, but the path forward. A path we choose ourselves, for better or worse. That choice, ultimately, is what makes us free.